Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by Become a Super Learner, the Masterclass. You guys, if you have ever wanted to learn things faster, to read faster and waste less time reading boring textbooks, if you've ever wanted to have near perfect memory for names, numbers, anything you want to learn, and expand your mind and retain information in a way that you never thought possible, well, then the Become a Super Learner Masterclass is exactly what you've been looking for. It's a 10-week program developed by myself and my mentors alongside some of the world's best memory experts and world record holding memory champions. It'll take you from zero to super learning hero in just a matter of 10 weeks in about 30 minutes a day or less. Now, you can go ahead and sign up for a free trial with no credit card required. All you have to do is go to jle.vi/learn. And if you choose to pick up the full course, you will also get an incredible discount for listeners of this podcast only. So please make sure to check it out and support the show. And on to today's episode. This episode is brought to you by Organifi. You know, the one thing that literally every single diet and nutrition expert that we've had on the show seems to agree on is that we need to eat more veg and get our greens and consume all natural products. But let's be honest. How many of us actually have the time? Well, recently I had the opportunity to meet some of the folks over at Organifi, and I've been absolutely blown away by them and their product. You see, Organifi is an organic superfood green juice powder that literally covers all your nutritional bases without having to eat 5 bowls of kale. It saves you loads of time, loads of money, and a lot of chewing. And really all you have to do is add water and drink it. So to check it out and save an incredible 20% off your first order, visit Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com and use coupon code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to a very special episode. But before we get into it, let me read you guys a quick review from Excellent Content from the United States of America. I think that was probably a mistake because the review title is also Excellent Content. It's a 5-star review and says, Jonathan has a great lineup of topics. I was hooked after the paleo. I love to listen to these on my commute. Keep them up. And we absolutely will keep them up, and I hope you guys will keep the reviews up because they certainly brighten my day. On to today's episode, you guys. Today we are joined by a very, very special guest and someone who, without knowing it, has dramatically improved my own life in the last half a year, although I think he knows it now. His name is Jason Nemer, and he is the co-founder of and driving force behind the rapidly growing sport of Acro Yoga. If you haven't heard me talk about it, which you probably have, well, Acro Yoga is a partner acrobatic practice, and it basically combines elements of gymnastics, yoga, and Thai massage to create this incredibly enjoyable and powerful experience. But it really, really goes far beyond just the physical exercise and fitness element. At least that's what my experience with Acro Yoga has shown me. And it has really been this deeply healing and uplifting, emotional and spiritual, just intense thing. And we're going to get into a lot of that in this episode. So today, Jason travels the world all year round and shares this incredible practice with people everywhere. We learned in the episode that he's actually set the goal of touching 1 billion people's lives, and he's really quite well on his way. He's been featured on the Tim Ferriss Show, in Forbes, and more. And so today we are very, very honored to have him here. Throughout the episode, we talk about, well, obviously Acro Yoga, but we talk about a whole lot more. We talk about what the practice is and the surprising ways that it will impact your life. We talk about trust and emotional health, how to start a global movement, learning. We really cover a lot of really, really great stuff, guys. Personally, I have to say, I think this was probably one of our best episodes ever. It had the feeling of that same, oh my gosh, can't contain myself excitement that I had when we were recording our award-winning episode with David Heinemeier Hansen. But maybe it's just the huge amount of admiration and gratitude I have for Jason and for his work. I don't know. You guys tell me. Hit us up in the comments on the blog post or at GoSuperhuman on Twitter and let me know what you guys think. For now, without any further ado, let me present to you my new super friend, Mr. Jason Nemer. Mr. Jason Nemer, welcome to the show, my friend. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited too.
Absolutely. So, Jason, I told the audience a little bit in the intro just how much your work has indirectly and directly touched my life. So I want to start the interview by thanking you because you've added whole new depths to my relationship with my body, my relationship with the opposite sex. So thank you before we get too deep into it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So Jason, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into all of this? I understand that you were quite an elite athlete from a very young age.
Yeah, I mean, not such a young age, and I think that's why I'm still doing it. I started gymnastics when I was 12, and really the seed got planted in the 1984 Olympics. I was 9, and I remember watching the Olympics, and it was just such a cool thing to witness the whole world coming together. And I remember very distinctly seeing the gymnastics and thinking, that looks cool. And I didn't really think much about it until 3 years later when I was 12 and my little brother was taking gymnastics and I decided to go watch one day. And after I watched one day, I was like, well, forget that. I'm going to go check that out. And I pretty much fell in love immediately. And from 12, well, really until 23 was my competitive career. And I definitely had about a year of training before I competed, but I basically started as a gymnast and then found partner acrobatics at the gym, some random gym in Sacramento, California. I had a couple of acrobats and I just fell completely in love with these arts.
That's very cool. I always tell people, or I've always believed, and before I found Acro Yoga, I was really big on handstands and stuff like that. And I really believe that there's something powerful about inverting the body. And I thought it was so interesting when you and I met that one of the first questions you asked everyone in the workshop was, how many of you have an inversion practice? And so I wanted to ask you, what was it about acrobatics that inspired you and pulled you in? Was it this idea of putting the body in different positions? Was it this idea of the accomplishment aspect of it, or?
It was just the magic of seeing a human do a handstand on another person's hands. I'll never forget it. Of course, just like everyone does, except me because I know now. But when I saw it, I was like, wow, that girl is so good at handstands. Didn't think anything about the base below that was holding her up. And I think that what I saw and then what I feel and what I see other people get intoxicated by is the connection, the duality that becomes a singularity, this ability for two humans to really become one human. So it's very much the epitome of yoga, which is union and connection, but it's shared between two people, and that it's magic. It looks like magic. It feels like magic. And as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted to do it. And as soon as I did it, I knew that I was on to something that would change my life.
Absolutely. And the lives of probably millions of other people as well at this point.
At this point, we're definitely in the millions. I'm not sure how many, but yeah, basically the hashtag AcroYoga on Instagram hit over 1 million last year, and acrobatics is, I think, only 250,000. And what that told me is AcroYoga is catching fire because it's approachable, and acrobatics is still something that people think only Cirque du Soleil acrobats do. And yeah.
That's definitely been my experience. I find it to be kind of one of the most viral things I've ever done. Maybe up there with reading, where you just want to get people involved in it. And I would say probably 90 to 95% of people that I drag along to a jam come back, and come back in a big way, in a this is my thing now way. And maybe 20% of people make it, a once in a while thing, and 5%, probably only 5% are like, yeah, I'm not so comfortable. I got a shoulder thing.
Right.
But it just seems to be such a, I hate to use the word addictive, but such a
It inspires people to see the world with a new lens. And as soon as you start believing that you can do things that you didn't think you can do before, and you can help other people realize that they can do things that they never thought they could do, yeah, it's intoxicating, it's inspiring, it really moves a lot of emotion in people.
Absolutely. I want to touch on that a lot, but I also want to ask, how did Acro Yoga come to be? Because obviously, as you said, acrobatics has been around forever and partner acrobatics has been around forever. And yet you guys have managed to do something and create something so unique. So tell us a little bit about, I understand that Acro Yoga was kind of, as a movement, accidentally started. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, once upon a time, there was a boy and a girl, a man and a woman. Yeah, it was myself. I had just fallen in love with yoga and did my first yoga teacher training. And I was in San Francisco doing a lot of yoga, but at the same time, keeping up my acrobatics. I was teaching trampoline at a circus center. And I kept hearing through mutual friends, there's this girl, Jenny, who's doing all this contortion at the circus center. And she's a yoga teacher and she teaches acrobatics to children. You guys have to meet. You're going to be such good friends. And literally the first time we met at a party and we started talking about our passions. And then I put her in a handstand on my hands, and she'd never done that before. She'd seen it, but thought she could never do it. And then she put me into a therapeutic flying pose, which basically means my body relaxes and she gives me a massage. And as an acrobat, to be inverted and relax and receive a massage totally blew my mind. And we were up until 5 a.m. that night talking about all the different pieces of our life's work coming together. And a week later, I was starting a partner acrobatics class at the circus center, and I asked her to be my co-teacher. And that's pretty much where it all started. And, you know, it's been expanding ever since then, but it was the seed of both of our skill sets and our passions coming together that really birthed this practice.
It's so beautiful. One thing I always ask myself, I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I'll find these new things. And, you know, there's the innovation in this community is so fascinating. And then the virality. So it's completely open source, democratized movement where people will come up with something and you'll see it at, say, a conference, or I'll learn something at a weekend away here in Israel. And it's this one little thing, you know, a way to get from position A to position B. You'll go, you'll do it. Someone else will see it. And within a week, everyone's doing that movement and it's completely kind of imbued the entire community, and then they move on to a new thing. And I think that's so incredible. But I always wonder to myself, like, what were the basic things that you guys introduced to launch this movement? And I think a case study could be done on you guys on the creation of a movement. And what are the things that you've seen that other people have created that you're like, whoa, we never thought of that?
Right. Well, like I said, I came from the gymnastics and acrobatics community first. And when I was 16, I went to China and competed at Junior World Championships and did very well for an American. We got 2 bronze and a silver. And what I saw when I was there, one thing that was totally life-changing is I realized there are always going to be people better than me. And the Chinese were much better than we were. But when we were doing our warm-ups for one of our routines, our difficulty level was pretty high, and they actually were clapping for us. They were very friendly, very sweet. And in the competition, they actually fell, and we beat the Chinese in China, which was a huge accomplishment. And I came back super inspired to train, but the compulsory system in America was very poor. It was not set up sequentially. And I came from gymnastics, which was very progressive and sequential. So basically what I did is myself and my co-teacher at the time, we came up with a whole system of developmental acrobatics that we showed up at the technical committee meeting. I was a 17-year-old kid, handed them this packet, and offended a lot of people because basically the system that existed was pretty poor and the one that we handed them was amazing. So I've been looking at how to make systems of progressive learning since I was 17. And so after acrobatics, when I developed Acro Yoga with Jenny, I had a big passion for helping yogis learn how to do handstands, for helping people that had never done any massage start at point A, go to point B. So I think the part of the reason why there is a global expansion of the practice is there's very approachable foundational material that has been spread around the world now for over 10 years.
And so I mean, we're going to geek out a little bit because I think a lot of people won't know these moves, though we'll certainly put them in a YouTube video. What kind of were the core movements that you guys developed and handed off, and what are the things? I mean, I imagine, a star, obviously a bird, things like that. And where did kind of your systematization end, and where did the open source innovation begin?
Well, we were the first ones to make manuals, and I made sequences. Back in the day, we actually set up our camera next to this big Buddha in Hong Kong, and we called it the Big Buddha Flow. And it was 3 different sequences, and it was progressive, and it was something that I wrote out, and then we did. And then we basically just on tour, our first big world tour, we set up a camera, recorded some flows, made it easy enough in level 1 and hard enough in level 3 that it was interesting. What happened, I'd say about 7 years ago, I saw Ninja Star for the first time. And it's
Really?
One of those things that just bent my mind. And actually the innovator of Ninja Star, Lux, who's an amazing acrobat in his own right, he actually edited one of my manuals years before. And there was a pose that now is so easy. It's front bird, side star to high flying whale. And I remember him writing me back saying, "Oh, that looks really hard. I can't wait to try it." So basically it went from almost caveman tools to high-speed internet as far as the innovation goes. And about 3 years ago, I was at Divine Play, the Acro Yoga festival, and there were 1,000 Acro Yogis together. And I got to take a bunch of classes. And every class I took, it blew my mind, all the different directions the practice was growing. And at that point, and till this day, I think that the human potential with Acro Yoga is infinite. I know we're finite, but it's just like music. I think there's 81 keys on a piano, and we're not going to run out of making beautiful music. And I feel like that's where the practice is now, is the expandability is immense because there's so much wisdom, and human potential is unlocked by other humans. So it's hitting that exponential kick.
That's an incredible metaphor in the creativity and artistic aspect. I also picked up a metaphor in the learning curve. So the creativity curve, as you said, is tremendous in this practice just because of the nature of the open source collaboration of it, but also the learning curve. I mean, as someone who plays around with accelerated learning for a living, and I'm not sure if you and Tim have had a chance to talk about this, but it's incredible when someone comes in, 10 minutes in, they're still shaking and reluctant to give you their weight. 30 minutes in, they're upside down, and an hour in, they're upside down on the tips of your toes. And it's remarkable, and people kind of really get to see. I think it's such a wonderful way to show people that accelerated learning is possible, because if you were to tell someone, hey, you're going to be upside down, my feet on your shoulders, and you're going to be balancing, and we're not going to use hands, by the way, and that's going to happen in the next hour or so, they wouldn't believe you. And I think it's a really great way to get people out of this idea that there are limits to the speed with which you can learn.
Well, the limits of the body are created by the mind. And in retrospect, or in contrast, the potential of the body is expanded and opened by the mind. So the body only gives clear, honest feedback. It's binary. It's either yes or no. And the mind has got every color in between the rainbow about what can and can't be. So when somebody is trying to learn and they get to access the simple wisdom of the body, and the body keeps doing things that the mind thought wasn't possible, then the mind starts having that same expansive quality that the body has. So I feel like the mind is the gateway to the body. And as soon as the two entities find a new arena to play in, the expandability of the mind gets enhanced by the body versus the mind shutting down the simple but very profound wisdom of the body.
That's huge. I've always said, as I mentioned before, that I think inversion is so important because it changes people's perspectives, but I've never really put my finger on it. And I think it's exactly that, is when you start to realize that you can be in a stationary position on your hands or on your feet or on your head, and that the opening of boundaries that does mentally, I think is just like some really solid soulful healing.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's touch more on that, because as I said, Acro's touched my life in a lot of ways, but I've also seen some really incredible things that go on for other people. I've seen people break down crying and kind of have to deal with some childhood emotional trauma that comes up in the moment because they don't trust their body, they don't trust their joints, or oftentimes they don't trust other people with their physical safety.
Right.
Talk to me a bit about that and what you've seen teaching thousands and thousands of people, because I think it is very easy for people to mistake this as a physical workout and not understand the very intense emotional and psychological healing that goes on when you trust someone at that level.
Sure. As an acrobat, it's a pretty sterile emotional environment, and circus as well can be a very dark place where people that don't like themselves will punish themselves and punish their body in the circus arts. And so what I've been able to experience, and actually I remember super clearly when I was young competing in gymnastics back when there were actual magazines, I got sent Gymnastics magazine, and Russia was on the first place gold medal, and the face was just a big frown, not even a smile. And then China was second place, same thing, just a frown. And then there was the American getting the bronze medal with a big smile. And I just looked at that picture and I realized how important joy and true emotion was with acrobatics. So I feel like as soon as I met yoga and I started mixing the wisdom of yoga with acrobatics, it became so much more of a deep connection to what the physical body and the emotions can do. And when I first started teaching yoga, I was terrified to teach yoga. And I'd been teaching acrobatics for 20 years. And my gymnastics buddy was like, I don't get it. Why are you so, like, my heart would beat and I would have to take a bunch of breaths. And what hit me about a month into teaching yoga is this is so much deeper than what we do in gymnastics, because you're actually touching somebody's soul. You have the potential to. You're touching their heart. And as I've seen acrobats that have that soul connection and that can speak to each other on an essence level, this is medicine that a lot of people don't have access to. And I've seen so many different cultures with this. You know, I was in Lebanon years ago, and the Lebanese in general at that immersion were some of the least trusting, hardest to let go of tension people I've worked with. And we finished the immersion and every single one of them were crying, and they had no idea why and they couldn't explain it. But it went from this trapped fear to this elation, to this emotional release. So I feel like our bodies, basically, whether we like it or not, store our experience. And everyone who's been a human has had negative traumatic experience. And when you have something that takes you out of your typical movement patterns and belief patterns, some of these old trapped energetic patterns find a way out that they never knew they had.
It's so true. It's so true. And just to have this completely atypical experience where you're actually safer, at least this is my kind of theory on basing. I find that I can keep my flyer a lot safer the more they trust me and the more they communicate with me, where if you're trying to protect yourself and you're shifting weight and moving and jerking and all kinds of stuff, you're putting us both at risk. And so it's really this paradoxical kind of, you really need to trust me and I really need to trust you and communicate with you if we both want to be safe as possible.
It's really good to do credit checks. It's really good to know the person you're working with and know that you can trust them. And trust is something that is earned. You cannot demand trust. It has to be a step-by-step process. Mm-hmm. If you're experienced, your body will resonate the confidence that you have. And if you are not experienced, or if you have an energetic pattern that is not aligning with the person you're working with, they'll feel that too. So, I read this thing years ago, trust is the only true currency. And I believe that trust has this magical component where, as a flyer, when you surrender, when you give trust, you actually get liberated. And as a base, when you receive somebody's trust, you actually become more grounded in the confidence. So it's kind of a paradoxical currency where when it's exchanged, both people win. And it's something that is so needed in our current society, because at least in America, we're taught strangers are people that you don't talk to. That's the definition of a stranger. You don't talk to them. And that is not how we're wired as humans. That is not what is natural. Like many things that we've been handed from our countries and our cultures, this practice gives us the moment to pause and rewrite a lot of things that we think about other people.
That's absolutely true. And I always like to joke around. People ask me, what do you do on Saturday? And I say, well, I go to the park and I touch strangers. And that's precisely what I'm doing. And I realized
borrow that one.
It's so good, right? Like I go and I play and I touch strangers. And I realized I would come away from these workouts, biking home, listening to music, singing at the top of my lungs on a high, and a high which would make you think, if you looked at me, that I just, ran a half marathon and was on this huge endorphin boost. And in fact, it's physically, for a, relatively strong person who comes from weightlifting, it's not that much of a workout. You're certainly not breaking a sweat in the same way. And I realized that this endorphin high was from all this physical contact, and just this idea of, when was the last time you spent 2.5 hours in physical contact with other people? And you can think to yourself, well, your romantic partner, but when was the last time you really had intense physical contact with someone for that long? That's a long time to even hold hands. And
Right.
Yet you're in these positions, holding someone's shoulders, holding their back, really kind of up close and personal. And I think there's a huge element of energy and pheromones and exposure to other people.
And the more that we get addicted to our devices and the more connection we have through cyber, the more our craving for an authentic human connection is. And for a lot of cultures, the only touch is sexual touch. And I give my parents massage when I see them. And I was giving my dad a massage one time, and I was just realizing the only two humans in the world that get to touch him in a loving way are my mom and myself. And I just thought, wow, I have so many friends in the world that I can have non-sexual loving touch with. That is a birthright of humans that I don't know about most, but many people don't have access to.
Wow. That's so incredibly true. And I think it's a big component of why we behave the way that we do.
Yeah.
Wow. Jason, could you share with us another story that's really particularly touched you? I really enjoyed the story of, the Lebanese attendees just bawling their eyes out. Is there any one story that you're allowed to share that really stands out?
I've got so many. There's one that is super unique and super beautiful. They're actually now, this man is a certified AcroYoga teacher, but he's in a wheelchair. And he was a circus artist, and he had a fall, and basically he can walk a little bit, but he's pretty much bound to his chair. And there's another woman that I met from Australia who was born with one arm. And I was doing a handstand workshop, and funny enough, it was a one-arm handstand workshop, and we were doing handstand walks. And she basically put her little stubby arm on his knee on the wheelchair, and he started wheeling the chair, and she would walk with her one arm. And during the workshop, I'm trying to teach, and I'm crying. I'm seeing these people that have these immense obstacles, and not only are they doing amazing things, they're supporting each other to do amazing things. And there's so many people that think they can't do things. And I have seen again and again that the human spirit is immeasurably powerful, and that's an individual. And when you get a community of empowered people together that want to support each other, I don't see many obstacles anymore. I just see it's a matter of time and a matter of figuring out, discerning what direction you want to move in. So
wow,
that was one of the most moving things as far as humans with big obstacles not having any obstacle.
I love that. I often talk about this concept. I really like metaphors, as you probably determined, and I call it emotional fibrosis. So, when you have a knot in your muscle and you need a massage, or you need a foam roller or a lacrosse ball, that's fibrosis that you need to break up. And the only way to break it up is by challenging it, by not forcing it, but by kind of gently working it. And so I talk about emotional fibrosis as, I have, say, body image issues, or I have trust issues. And it does seem that the way to get through that is the same kind of thing, foam rolling it. And acro seems to be one hell of a way to foam roll out a lot of this emotional fibrosis.
Yeah. And it's also, I've had friends that basically I trained in Acro Yoga that then started their own brand of Acro Yoga with varying degrees of integrity from my perspective. And this one gentleman, it was really hard because he was a really good friend, and we basically fought a little bit and then decided we weren't talking to each other, and then thought, you know what, this is bullshit. We want to talk. We want to work this out. So basically I told him he shouldn't come to this big festival. And then I called him up. I'm like, you know what, you should come, but the only way you're going to come is if we teach a workshop together. And he said yes. And we didn't really talk much until the festival, and we got together and we didn't say a word. We just played with each other, and we just flew each other for about 45 minutes, put together the workshop. He's 6'7", I'm 5'9", and I wanted to call it Big Problems and Small Solutions. But basically, we taught a workshop based on flying people from different sizes. And if you have a much bigger flyer, these are the techniques that work. And if you have a much smaller flyer, these are the more advanced things you can do. And we started the workshop just telling people a little bit about our struggles and our difficulties. And we didn't need to go to therapy. We didn't need to talk a bunch. We just had to connect on a human level through the practice. And I've had that happen multiple times since then.
Wow. I think I have an idea who you're talking about. I think that's a really beautiful story of your friendship and your relationship. Incredible. So Jason, tell me this, is Acro Yoga for everybody? Would you encourage anyone and everyone out there to give it a try? I know I would.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's for everybody. You know, my dad is an example. It depends on what your definition of Acro Yoga is. Acro Yoga is, to me, yoga, healing arts, and acrobatics. And after I gave my dad a massage one time, he still had some lower back pain. And I'm like, well, I've got this great therapeutic flying tool. Let me put you up in the air. And it was just too strong of a tool, and it didn't work for him. And I actually ended up putting more tension in his body than taking out. There are aspects of Acro Yoga that I think everybody can enjoy. So partner stretching, partner yoga. I've been developing something for about 5 years now called AcroFit, which is basically a fitness version of Acro Yoga that has very low body contact and is using the intelligence of another random human moving to help you find stabilizing muscles. And I think there are ways that Acro Yoga can be for everyone, and it's a strong practice on a lot of levels. So it really depends on the skillfulness of the presentation, the instructor that you're working with. But my belief is if you are wanting to find more individual clarity in who you are and how to leverage that clarity by learning about who other people are, I think that's a really solid practice for that. And there's some people that don't want to find more connection with other people. And so it'd be a big statement for me to say that I think it's for everyone, but I think there's enough diversity in the practice that you can find a way that Acro Yoga will speak to you.
Absolutely. So what would be your advice for someone who wants to get started? Where should they go? I mean, I personally, someone dragged me to a jam and that was it. And I just started learning from other people. But I imagine there are better, safer, more efficient ways to learn.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of similar questions in the past couple of years. And now that the practice is spread across the globe, the jam culture is strong enough that many people can find it that way. You know, if you're in Siberia, I don't know if there's a jam in Siberia in the winter, but there are acro-yogis that I've trained that are Siberian, so you never know.
Actually, I but played with a Siberian this week.
Well, there you go. You're proving my point. So I think language is a good analogy with Acro Yoga. If I want to learn Spanish, I can hop on a plane, go to a Spanish-speaking country, and just start speaking to people. And that's an amazing way to develop courage, to just listen really well. And I think that's what a jam is. It's just going and experiencing the practice. But if I meet the woman of my dreams and want to propose marriage and talk to the father about it, I want to have some grammar lessons. I want to be more eloquent in what I say. So if you're looking for precision in what you do and eloquence in what you do, certified teachers, there is no better thing than getting direct transmission from people that have had a tremendous amount of training. And there are 1,000 teachers around the world currently in 60 countries. So it's pretty easy to run into an Acro Yoga teacher if you're seeking it out. We also have YouTube videos that are free. So if you're not sure if you like the practice, you can download those videos, check it out, get with 3 friends ideally. Ideally, you have a base, a flyer, and a spotter. That's how the practice is designed. That way you have safety and you also have people to celebrate when you make victories. So I would say it's the combination of having some either instructors or instructional material that can help you see the safe entry into the practice.
Awesome. And to check out those different resources, people just go to acroyoga.org.
AcroYoga International on YouTube. We have our own little channel there. So that's where you can get the free stuff. acroyoga.org is where we have more instructional material that you can purchase. There's a manual, there are 2 DVDs, and everything starts with level 1, level 2, level 3. It's very well thought out curriculum.
Awesome. So I want to ask a tougher question, Jason, because we started to touch on this a little bit before we started recording the interview. And I had kind of tossed out this idea of, wouldn't it be so cool if we did a Israeli-Palestinian kind of jam? What's your personal mission? What's driving you in this movement? Because obviously you've touched so many people's lives, but you're obviously working very, very hard and traveling all year round. So what's the driving force behind this? How far do you take this?
Well, what's great is the CEO of the company, Rahel, who's actually Israeli. She's awesome. And she asked me, what's Jason Nemer's mission statement? Because we were working on developing AcroYoga's mission statement. Mm-hmm. And it took months to really mine it out of my heart and into words. And we support all people through movement, connection, and play. And if you think about marketing, all people, what are you talking about? That's not marketing. But my mission is, in my lifetime, I want 1 billion acro-yogis to be exposed and experience the practice. So it's a really high goal. And, I decided when I was 12 that I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I got there. I got to perform in opening ceremonies, and I thought I was going to be there competing in acrobatics, but acrobatics still isn't in the Olympics. So I feel like I've already in my life demonstrated that I can set high goals and reach them. And part of that is being flexible about how I get there. So I'm not sure if AcroFit is going to be the way I get to 1 billion people. Currently, that is my belief, but maybe it's going to be going to Israel and working with the military, because I have a Krav Maga instructor who's very high up, or was very high up in the Israeli military, that he's also an AcroFit instructor, and we taught Mexican police officers AcroFit. And if I didn't have that tool, I never would have had Mexican police officers hold hands and om and do a folded leaf. No way. Mm-hmm. But my mission and my desire is to give people tools that help them understand more who they are, help them feel more empowered and healthy in their body, and how they can take that self-knowledge and take it to the next step, which is learning how to support other people.
Brilliant. Such a wonderful goal. And if there's anything I can do to help you achieve it, obviously.
You're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it literally right now. Let me ask you this. Are there any kind of skills or habits or routines that you feel make you perform at a higher level and will help you in achieving that goal? In other words, has Tim rubbed off on you with all the life hacking?
I'm in his book, Tools of Titans, and even though I'm a nomad and I travel the world, I carry his big and heavy book around the world with me because it's so full of wisdom, and I'm nibbling on it. And I feel like I've got all the practices I need to keep going deeper in what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I learned at a very young age that has stayed with me is I bring joy to my discipline. So I'm a very disciplined person, but I don't do it because I think I should. I do it because I love what I do. And whether it's throwing frisbees, throwing knives, playing music, there's so many things in my life that I do, but I try to treat life like a game, and I like to enjoy the vast majority of the things I do. I mean, nobody loves sitting on the computer and cranking out emails necessarily. It's not that I just live in a fairy tale land where everything's happy all the time. I'm a human. I experience the rainbow of emotions. But when it comes to things that I'm passionate about, I let the passion fuel my discipline.
Amazing. I think that's a really good habit in and of itself, and a kind of mindset, cognitive framing adjustment more than anything.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have lost their compass for what brings them joy, and they do things because they want to make money, they want to have the house, they want to do this, then they get into a relationship, and then, there's a lot of ways that people can get lost about who they are and what they desire. And I've been able to be a very successful person in the things that I do because I really enjoy what I do. And I think if you're not enjoying what you do, life is short. It's really important to continue to step towards your passions, because if you don't, you'll stop hearing what your passions are. And then, this is a great Benjamin Franklin quote. He says, many people die at 25 and they're buried at 75. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of people that go that direction. So I think, life is so precious. And this year I've already seen a number of my friends lose family members and pets. And there's not a day that I wake up that I don't have gratitude for a vast majority of what passes in front of me, even the hard stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what are your biggest challenges right now as you grow this movement, kind of coming back to this idea of, holy crap, this thing is growing faster than anyone could have imagined. And I know just scheduling this was so difficult because you're traveling so much and your organization is growing so much. So what are the things that are really challenging you?
It's, I did get a degree in economics. And as soon as I got my last semester, I took Asian philosophy, did my first yoga class, and became a hippie yogi. And I never created this business to make money. And I have never made money in this business. The business has been fueling the expansion of everything. And learning how to scale the business, learning how to create better infrastructure for myself and 1,000 teachers. This is not my natural skill set. And it wasn't until about 6 months after I made the goal to get 1 billion practitioners that I thought, I need to make millions of dollars if I want to get 1 billion practitioners. So I need to give the business a lot more attention. So I think my struggle / my growth and my learning is, how do I use Western business tools that are also in line with the type of person I am and the type of company that we are. We're a company of 4 people, and I'm one of the 4, and I'm running around the world like crazy teaching because I want the global standard of the practice to keep rising as it expands. So I think the challenge and the opportunity is to align with other people that have done similar things and basically get them on board and build out the company and build out the vision for how the company is going to be successful, because the practice is super successful. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that have a very shit product, but they have good marketing and they have good structure and they make a ton of money. So what I believe is we've found gold. We found something that is completely magical, and we have to learn now how to align a business around it.
Right. And it's almost very tricky because by design, you've created something that's so open source, so democratic, and kind of so inviting that anyone can come in and get a few friends together and say, hey, I'll teach you guys the basics. But how do you create structure around that without people feeling the confines of a structure? I think is really interesting. I swear there's going to be a case study about you. A Harvard Business School case study, like 10 years from now, about just this exact issue, which I think we're going to start seeing more and more now that we have all these incredible technologies like YouTube and so on, where, oh crap, we've built this incredibly huge movement. Now, how do we keep it alive and keep it sustainable from a financial perspective?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's also, even if I don't make a lot of money doing what I do. I had a friend recently that pointed this out to me. She says, I don't know anybody that has a life that's more rich than you. You get to travel the world and meet amazing people, and you have a tribe of friends that you've been hanging out with for the past decade that you travel the world with in different cycles. So, my personal goal is not to be a millionaire. And at the same time, I know that money is something that's going to really support many people getting access to the practice. And so it's all part of the mission. If all people are going to be supported by movement, connection, and play, there needs to be financial backing behind it for that to be a reality.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also really interesting, this idea that I don't think your life could necessarily be better with insertion of money. You might go for more comfortable travel accommodations or
exactly. It's
outsource
first class flights.
Right.
It's better Airbnbs. There's definitely some tangible upgrades that my life would have. And at the same time, it's more comfortable for me to stay at my friend's house in Germany because I love them and I love their baby and I want to hang out with them. So I wouldn't want to live a different lifestyle. But, the first class is a big upgrade, and I'm not doing that on a regular basis yet.
Totally. Well, when you come to Israel, you have a guest room ready. So
Sweet.
Know this. There's a hammock as well. So be prepared.
The Mexican in me is smiling.
Amazing. Let's get into some rapid fire questions here. First off, I want to ask, you said that you carry around Tools of Titans. What are some other books that have changed your life?
The Tao Te Ching is probably one of my biggest, I don't know about daily readers, but I'll read it a lot before I meditate. And I love how simple the sentences can be and how deep it can take you. Mm-hmm. Another great book that I read years ago is How Yoga Works by Geshe Michael Roach, who's actually a friend of mine, a colleague. He's done 3 different 3-year, 3-month, and 3-day silent retreats. And on one of those retreats, him and his partner at the time wrote this book. And the book is about the Yoga Sutras, which is an ancient book, but basically they turned it into a story and they gave it a lot of life. So some people don't have the discipline to read a 2,000-year-old book that's got a lot of rules, but the way that they framed it in a story is super beautiful.
Okay, those are some really good ones because I've read a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, but I need to give it another revisit. Let me ask another kind of tough question, which is, especially as a traveler and nomadic person, what are some products and resources that you just couldn't live without?
That's a good question. I mean, the simple one is oil. I love coconut oil and just fancy essential oils. I have very rigorous bathing and oil rituals to keep my body healthy and happy. Yeah, I'm a pretty simple guy. I have a whiteboard that I travel the world with that keeps my life organized. It's not any one brand, but things that keep me happy are usually things that are not heavy, that I don't carry. They're usually consumable things.
And how many weeks a year are you actually traveling, and how many weeks are you at home base, which I believe is Mexico City?
No, I have not had a home for over 6 years, almost 7, and I haven't stayed in one place longer than 3 weeks in almost 7 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. I should be dead, but thank God for my practices and thank God for my global family that I love so much that keep me going.
Do you have any tips for maintaining your energy level, health, and sanity?
Yeah, it's dedication to my self practices, whether it's meditation, my yoga practice, music. I have an altar that I travel with and I set it up anytime I'm going to be in one place longer than 3 days. And it's just rituals that I feel like one of the things that we lost in Western culture, modern culture, maybe I would say, is having rituals, daily rituals, and just doing things that I'm very passionate about. I think my passion keeps me fed.
I like that. And I also like the discussion of ritual. A very dear friend of mine is a university professor and just wrote a piece on the power of ritual, which came out of the experience that we shared at Burning Man and just observing her through kind of a social psychologist perspective and me through a sociologist perspective. And I deserve absolutely no credit for this article, but it was really interesting to see her reflection in a very academic sense to say exactly that.
Yeah.
As Westerners, we've really lost a lot of this ritual.
That's one of the most beautiful things about religion, but you can have a ritual without religion. And spirituality and ritual, if you get to play with spirit on a daily basis, you're going to be much more fulfilled in your life.
Absolutely. Is that your spiritual play, is meditation, or how does spirituality come into acro for you? Or does it?
Yeah, I made a decision a long time ago, and maybe at some point I'll change my mind about this, but I studied with Bikram, and he's a very outlandish person. And he said, when people ask me about my spiritual practice, I ask them about their masturbation practice. It's between me and God, and don't ask me about that. And I have my spiritual practices, and really it's living life and being aware of what moves me. The hairs stand up on my arm multiple times per day. It did once on this call when you brought up something. So I feel like I did spend a lot of time reading many different spiritual books to give myself different ideas and different portals to spirit. But I think right now what I'm practicing more is I've been doing pretty regular meditation for a couple of years. And I was realizing that the difference between meditation and prayer is just clearer intention. And I like having meditation be something that is not prayer, to just let my mind be free and let me steep in silence. But the more that I do the meditation, I feel like I'm doing homeopathic doses of steeping in emptiness. And from that perspective, I can start filling that emptiness with spirituality and prayer. And yeah, I'm 42. I'll be 42 in a few weeks. And I feel like thank you. I feel like I'm very young in my life and in my practices, but I feel like spirit is going to be more and more something that I delve in, but I didn't ever want to be a guru, and I don't want to tell people how they should practice spirituality. Again, I like to give people tools, and I like to let them discover things by their practices.
Absolutely. And I think that is the role of the teacher. Is it's impossible to tell the student how to use the knowledge that they acquire, and downright not recommended. And I also, as a teacher, am always, I think it's the coolest things. You talked about this moment of going to workshops and every single workshop being just amazed. I think the coolest thing about teaching people for a living is like, wait, you applied it to what? You're learning what now? And how? Explain to me how you use the stuff that you picked up here to get to there. And I think that's like the highest accomplishment that a teacher can seek to achieve, is to have a student who surpasses their own ability.
For sure.
Jason, I've seen the incredible patience and compassion that you have when you teach. And so I have a suspicion that I might know the answer to this one, although I'm less sure after learning about your travel schedule. But I'll ask it anyways, which is, what is your superpower?
Only one, huh?
Give us a couple.
I would say clarity in what I want and where I'm going. My mom nicknamed me the tank when I was a toddler, because if I saw something, I would crawl over the typewriter instead of around it. And same thing with the Olympics, same thing with Acro Yoga. When I see something that I am clear that I want to move towards, I don't see obstacles, and I'm very determined and creative and flexible about how I get there. I would say that's definitely one of my superhero powers.
I really like that. I think that's probably one of the most important superhero powers out there. So Jason, I want to be respectful of your time. Before we wrap up, go ahead and let people know where they can get in touch with you. And also, this episode will come out on April 25th. So if you want to share with people, I know your year is already nailed down for 2017. So if you want to share with people where they can actually have the incredible experience that I had of watching you teach, that would also be really cool.
Well, I'm Jason Nemer pretty much everywhere on Instagram, and it's Nemer, which in Arabic means tiger. I'm actually
Hebrew as well, actually.
Does it mean tiger or leopard? I think it means leopard in Hebrew, no?
I think it's tiger, Nemer.
Okay, great. So it's Jason Nemer on Instagram, on Facebook. As far as where I'll be in the world, one of the best places to meet the practice and to meet me is Divine Play, which is an Acro Yoga festival in Portland in October. It's always the biggest gathering of acro yogis on the planet, and I will be offering beginner workshops. I'll also be leading some of the warm-ups. So that is definitely an amazing place to gather. Whenever there's a teacher training, and there's 4 of them this year, we have festivals after the teacher training, and basically all the students that get trained, they teach day 1, and then the facilitators teach day 2. So that will be in Rio de Janeiro in July, in Berlin in August. There's going to be one in September in Greece, and one in Mexico in October. So
wow,
there's lots of acro yoga happening.
So
and
much.
Yeah, I definitely want to get back to the Middle East. I've taught there a bit, and I feel like one of my life missions is to do a unity festival. And I'm thinking of doing it in Jordan. I have an Israeli friend that I'm actually going to see next week, who's an amazing Watsu therapist, which is aquatic bodywork. And he's found a hot springs in Jordan. And Jordan is a neutral enough territory where we can get a lot of Israelis, Palestinians, and Arabs there to experience healing on levels that I don't know that region has ever seen.
That's incredible. And I am hereby committing that I will do everything in my power to get as many people from my community, circle, so on and so forth to get there. So let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. I'm so excited about that.
Me too. Me too. So Jason, I want to be respectful of your time. As I said, if people take away just one message here, and I hope they take away many, many more, but if they carry this one message with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that to be?
that we are infinitely talented, capable creatures, and the obstacles that lay in front of us have been handed to us by negative experience and by other people, and positive experience and finding the right people can change that. So just believe in human potential, not only your own, but others.
Wow. Brilliant note to end on. Mr. Jason Nemer, I want to thank you not just for your time and for your wisdom, but also for the tremendous impact that your work has had and continues to have on myself and many, many people that I know and love. I really look forward to seeing what you guys do with this movement, and I do hope we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, it's conversations like this that really keep me motivated to keep going, because there are moments where I don't know if what I'm doing is really reaching people, but hearing how things are in Israel and hearing how motivated you are to support this practice growing, it really touches me, and I'm going to keep at it.
All right, my man. Well, let's keep in touch.
Right on.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right, super friends, that's it for this week's episode. We hope you really, really enjoyed it and learned a ton of applicable stuff that can help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If so, please do us a favor and leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or however you found this podcast. In addition to that, we are always looking for great guest posts on the blog or awesome guests right here on the podcast. So if you know somebody, or you are somebody, or you have thought of somebody who would be a great fit for the show or for our blog, please reach out to us either on Twitter or by email. Our email is info@becomingasuperhuman.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.